Outside the Havana military prison, a crowd stood silent, holding its breath. Everyone was waiting to hear if the young lawyer inside would walk free, or disappear forever. Moments later, a door creaked open, and a tall, intense man with burning eyes stepped into the sunlight. He raised his hand and declared, in a thunderous voice, "Condemn me, it does not matter. History will absolve me." That man was Fidel Alejandro Castro Ruz. And this was the moment Cuba and the world realized it was facing someone unstoppable. But how did a boy born in a remote Cuban village rise to challenge dictators, overthrow an entire regime, bring America to the brink of nuclear war, and reshape global politics for half a century? This is the extraordinary story of a man who refused to bow not to emperors, not to presidents, not even to fate. Fidel Castro was born in 1926 on a vast sugarcane plantation owned by his father, a wealthy Spanish immigrant. But unlike other privileged children, young Fidel didn't grow up soft. He listened to the songs of workers, the complaints of farmers, and the anger of those who lived in poverty, while elites lived in luxury. These voices planted a seed inside him, a belief that the world was unfair, and that someone had to change it. At school, Castro was rebellious, brilliant, and fearless. He argued with teachers. He led student protests. He even challenged bullies twice his size. People around him whispered, he will either change the world, or destroy himself trying. In the bustling streets of Havana University, Castro discovered his true calling, political activism. While others studied quietly, he dove into dangerous student movements, clashing with corrupt politicians and gang leaders who ruled the city's underground. Several attempts were made on his life, but Castro didn't just survive, he grew more determined. He once told a friend, "If I cannot live free, I will die fighting for it." Graduating as a lawyer, he immediately took on cases defending the poor, but he soon realized something brutal. The law could not fix a broken system. Only revolution could. In 1952, everything changed. General Fulgencio Batista, backed by powerful elites and American interests, seized Cuba through a military coup, destroying democracy overnight. Castro saw his country fall under the iron grip of a dictator who allowed gambling bosses, mafia groups, and foreign corporations to drain Cuba's wealth, while ordinary people starved. He had two choices: accept the new regime, or challenge a dictator controlling the army, the police, and the state. He chose the impossible. On July 26, 1953, Castro led a daring attack on the Moncada barracks, the second largest military fortress in Cuba. The mission failed. Many of his men were killed. He was captured. Cuba expected him to beg for mercy. Instead, he delivered one of the most legendary speeches in history, the speech that shook the nation. "You may imprison me," he declared, "but you cannot imprison ideas." People realized something powerful. This young man was not afraid of death. And a man who does not fear death is a man no regime can suppress. Castro was sentenced to 15 years, but released after only 2, thanks to massive public pressure. The revolution had found its leader. After his release, Castro went to Mexico to regroup. There he met the man who would become a legend, Ernesto Che Guevara, the doctor with revolutionary fire in his eyes. Together, they planned something insane: to sail back to Cuba with just 82 men and start a guerrilla war in the mountains. Their boat, Grandma, was tiny, overloaded, and barely seaworthy. Waves crashed over the deck. Men got seasick. Their supplies were ruined. But Castro refused to turn back. When they finally landed, Batista's forces attacked immediately. Only 18 survivors escaped into the mountains. 18 men against an entire army. Yet from those mountains, the revolution ignited. In the Sierra Maestra mountains, Castro used intelligence, discipline, and charisma to win the hearts of the local villagers. His fighters treated the locals with respect, unlike Batista's soldiers who burned houses and terrorized civilians. Soon people began whispering, "Los Barbudos, the bearded ones, are the future of Cuba." Castro's forces grew from 18 to hundreds, then thousands. The revolution became unstoppable. On January 1, 1959, while the world celebrated New Year's, Batista fled the country in fear. Castro's rebels marched into Havana, greeted by tears, cheers, and hope. For the first time in centuries, Cuba belonged to its people. But freedom was only the beginning. The real battle for Cuba's future had just begun. Once in power, Castro moved quickly. He redistributed land to farmers. He built universal healthcare and education systems, making them free for everyone. He nationalized foreign-owned industries. The poor saw him as a hero. The elites and foreign corporations saw him as a threat. America was alarmed. Castro wasn't just changing Cuba. He was changing the balance of power in the entire region. Castro aligned with the Soviet Union, the great rival of the United States. This alliance turned Cuba, a small island, into the center of global tension. The CIA trained Cuban exiles to overthrow him. This led to the Bay of Pigs invasion, complete disaster that strengthened Castro's power even more. But the real shock came in 1962. The Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles on Cuban soil. The world froze. One wrong move, and humanity could face nuclear war. For 13 terrifying days, the world held its breath. This was the Cuban Missile Crisis, the closest we have ever come to total destruction. Castro stood firm. He believed Cuba had the right to defend itself, no matter the cost. In the end, the missiles were removed, but Castro emerged as the man who stared down a superpower and did not blink. For decades, Castro survived everything thrown at him. Over 600 assassination attempts, crippling economic embargoes, internal rebellion, international isolation, and constant global criticism. Yet he remained in power longer than nearly any other modern leader. He became a powerful symbol, loved by millions for his defiance, hated by millions for his authoritarian rule. Supporters saw him as a champion of the poor, a protector of national pride, and a voice against imperialism. Critics saw him as a dictator, a suppressor of freedoms, and a man who silenced all opposition. Love him or hate him, one truth remained: Fidel Castro could not be ignored. In 2006, after a long illness, Castro was forced to hand power to his brother, Raul Castro. After nearly 50 years of rule, the revolutionary finally stepped into the shadows. When he died in 2016, millions mourned and millions celebrated. But everyone agreed on one thing: he left an impact that will echo for centuries. Castro was not just a leader. He was a storm, a force of history. A man who rose from sugar fields to challenge empires, who reshaped a nation, and who stood unbroken against the most powerful country in the world. Some call him a hero. Some call him a tyrant. But no one can deny his legacy. Because Fidel Castro didn't just live history, he became it. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the figures who shaped our world. See you next time.